everyone. We'll begin very shortly. Guys, we're not speaking right now, so if you hear me right now, you should be fine. Guys, we'll wait 2 more minutes for everyone else to join, and we'll begin.
Recording in progress.
All right, guys, let's begin. So sorry for waiting, everyone. And yeah, you made me laugh a little in the chat. So good job, everyone. So now we're really beginning. Okay. So my name is Ron Breger, as you can see on my screen. And as I found out, you already found me on LinkedIn. So that's very nice. And I'll pretty much be your instructor today and on Thursday. So before we even begin, a little background about myself. I served in the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, as a networking and cybersecurity instructor. And as you can see from my speaker profile, I had guided numerous officers and NCOs, which are non-commissioned officers, how to better defend the Israeli military networks. After the military, I've joined ThriveDX to teach the citizens of the world, as well as you guys, how to better defend yourselves on the network. Now, enough about me, and let's dive into our topic today. Intro to cybersecurity and web application penetration. So here in ThriveDX, we have accompanied you with a very, very good hackathon about cybersecurity. After the hackathon, you will be cybersecurity experts. I mean, of course, you'll still have a lot to learn to go and work in the industry, but you will pretty much know all the topics. Cyber won't be any gibberish for you anymore. It won't be like Chinese or something. You will understand what people are talking with you about and what do they even want to do with it. So in this webinar, we'll focus on what is cybersecurity, why it's so important. And afterwards, I will show you what is web application security and how can we exploit it. Now, an exploitation is when we see a vulnerability in an application and we try to get inside. And I'll show you exactly how we do it in a very nice demo at the end of the webinar. So let's begin. First of all, who are we? So ThriveDX is a global cyber education company with a commitment to reskill and upskill the industry in the terms of cybersecurity. So ThriveDX tackles cybersecurity two greatest threats: the talent shortage and the skills gap. So pretty much all of you guys are very much talented. I can just know, but I can just know it because, well, you have joined the webinar, and here we are. And your talent is needed in this field. So I really encourage every single one of you. Each topic you learn here today, Google it, search for yourself, self-study it, become an expert in it, because the world needs you guys. The world really needs you to become the next cyber experts, to defend them from all of the cyber threats, which we will discuss in this very webinar. So why is cybersecurity even important? So I want all of you to look in the information in here. Pretty scary, I'd say. Nearly 1% of all the email we get is a phishing attempt, which is a type of attack that tries to steal your information. Moreover, in our difficult times, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the FBI has reported an increase of 300% in cybercrimes, which is a very worrying figure. Now, another very interesting fact here is that 70% of cybersecurity professionals claim their organization is impacted by the cybersecurity shortage, which is what I've talked to you about just a little while ago. And this is pretty much where you guys come into the picture. Now, let me tell you why choosing a cybersecurity career is a great choice. But first, before that, let's see which cyber threats we have. So as you can see in this slide, I'm pretty sure you've heard about all of these topics a lot of times: malware, DDoS, phishing, web application attacks, which we will cover today. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So malware is any type of software which is malicious. It's designed to harm a computer, server, client, a network, whatever. And malware is from two words, malicious and software. So some of you are really engineers, maybe even software engineers. And what can we do? Some software engineers in the world use their skills to write malicious software to harm computers and such, which is a very bad thing. So this is malware. Maybe some malware types which you have heard a lot in your lives can be a virus, a Trojan horse, a worm, etc., etc. Let's talk about DDoS, distributed denial of service. A DDoS attack is and a malicious attempt to disrupt the normal traffic of the targeted service, or pretty much any network by overwhelming the target or its surroundings infrastructure with a flood of internet traffic. So we send a lot, and I mean a lot, of malicious traffic to a server, for example, and the server is very much overwhelmed with the amount of traffic it gets. So it becomes stuck, it can't respond to normal requests, and I'm pretty sure you know what it could feel like when you enter a website and it takes eternally to load it. Maybe you don't know, but the moment you have visited a website, it was under a DDoS attack. It can, of course, happen. And last but not least, web application attacks is when an application vulnerability allows criminals to gain direct and public access to databases in order to charm sensitive data. And we'll see how to do it at the end of the webinar. Now, why is even choosing a cybersecurity career is a great career choice? So what's written here is pretty much a guarantee that you'll find a job in cybersecurity industry anytime now, because there are so many unfilled positions in this world, and the number is only growing. Of course, you'll have to work extremely hard. The world needs more cyber experts to better defend organizations. So before we started the webinar, I saw someone asked if the material covered in here is enough to work in the cybersecurity industry. So of course, first of all, the material you learn here is very much the basics of cybersecurity, but to work in the industry, you will have to learn much more than what we cover here today. So right now I give you the basics, and after this, it's in your hands to research about these basics, how to do them, how to exploit, how to find vulnerabilities. It's in your entire hands to learn about all of this interesting stuff, because if you want to get inside the industry, you'll have to work very hard. Now let's talk about some open cyber positions worldwide. So in this map, you can pretty much see how many unfilled cyber positions are available around the world. And so in North America, we see there are more than 600,000 unfilled cybersecurity positions. And in APAC, in your region, there's more, and the majority, by the way, more than 2.6 million unfilled positions. And globally, it's more than 4.2 million. So as you can see here, it's pretty much a guarantee that if you're good enough, you won't have any problems gaining a cybersecurity job. Now, cybersecurity is even career-proof. And why is that? So as I've told you before, during the COVID-19 pandemic, cybercrimes have increased a lot. And by the same time, a lot of companies had fired their employees because, well, it was a global pandemic, the world didn't know what to do, and a lot of money losses. While in the cybersecurity industry, it was only about 2% of firing, which makes it more stable than any other industry around the world. Okay, so enough of talking about why cybersecurity is important. Now let's talk about what is exactly cybersecurity. So let's first of all talk about the cybersecurity world and cybercrime. So we always hear about it: cybersecurity, cyber attacks, phishing attempts, password stealing, identity theft. There's a lot of things: viruses, ransomware, worms. In the early 70s, 80s even, these words were not very widely used. So what inspired the development of cybersecurity up until today? So it's gotta be cybercrime. And cybercrime targets can be classified into three main categories. Let's see what these are: assets, individual, and government. Asset theft crimes are similar to real-life situations in which criminals obtains unauthorized access to a person's bank or credit card. It can be whatever. And in the cyber world, the attacker obtains a person's bank account information, it gains the access to funds, conduct online activities, or even it can steal money. Very, very similar to the real world. Now, targeted individual attacks distribute malicious or unauthorized data online. This category includes cyberstalking, the distribution of pornography, human trafficking, and etc. It can be a lot of different stuff. Now, cyber government, one of the most interesting topics, is also known as cyber terrorism. It refers to criminal activity directed against a government and attacks on official websites, distribution of fake news, the promotion of agendas, and a few instances of cybercrime directed at governments. So if, for example, now let's give a situation, an example for each of the topics which we have covered right now. An asset theft can be when, for example, you have paid for something on a website with your credit card, and then this website got hacked, and all of the credit cards in there got to the outside world. This would be an asset theft. An individual cybercrime may be someone who has gained your Facebook or Instagram credentials. He has your username and password. This can be an individual theft. Now, a cyber government or even a cyber terrorism can be a group of individuals, a very talented and experienced hackers, which, for example, hack into the Indian government and steal a lot of confidential data, for example. So this will be a cyber government attack. Okay. Now, cybercrimes, also known as cyber attacks, are illegal activities in which computing device, such as a computer, a smartphone, or a network, is used as a tool or an object of criminal behavior. People often commit crimes for revenge, greed, or even fun. Now, greed, one of the main reasons people commit cyber attacks, because it's the fastest and the easiest way to make money. For example, you want to get rich in a matter of seconds, minutes. Well, you at least some years ago, you could just enter a bank website or hack into someone's bank account and just steal his money. You don't have to come with a handgun and aim at someone in the street. You can do all of it virtually, and a lot of times even cover your footprints. Now, a revenge can be when some attackers aim to exact revenge on another person or organization, society, by causing financial or physical harm. So, for example, your nemesis has done some bad things for you. So you say, okay, I will hack into your computer and encrypt all of your files. It can happen. It happened, and it happens all the time. Now, fun can be when some amateur hackers carry out cyber attacks to test some of the newest technologies and techniques they have learned. So, for example, you've learned about a tool called Metasploit, which can exploit some vulnerabilities. And you just, for the fun of it, want to see, okay, let's see if I can hack into this computer, into this system. It can happen sometimes, and it's pretty much illegal unless it's a website that permitted you to hack into it. Now, I want you to write in the chat which cyber attacks and cyber crimes have you heard in the past few weeks, months. It can be anything you want. Please write in the chat. So I see someone wrote ransomware, Log4j, great. DDoS, Trojan Horse, XSS, MSDT, SolarWinds attack, very nice. Ukraine Power Grid, very good. Data breaches, Stuxnet, very nice. I guess everyone here says Stuxnet because I'm Israeli. I didn't say we did it. SSRF, WannaCry, very good. Pegasus, LFI, SQL injection, very good. Felina War, broken access control, CSRF. Okay, I see I'm not, see there are a lot of experts here. So I think we just end the webinar right now because I have nothing to teach you, as I can see here. Okay, very nice, everyone. So really, you have covered a lot of attacks, a lot of cyber crimes, a lot of malware types. And so I see you're still typing in the chat. So I cannot cover everything you just wrote, but very, very nice. I see you have a lot of stuff, a lot of knowledge in this world. So let's continue. First of all, who are the cyber attackers? Pretty much, who are the bad guys that do all of the cyber attacks, all of the cyber crimes, which you have heard about in the news all these years? So we can pretty much divide it into two categories, the good guys and the bad guys. So when we're talking about the good guys, their formal name will be hackers. So I know all of you always heard the term hackers, but the formal name for bad hackers will be more like crackers. Some industry names for the good guys can be white hat hackers, ethical hackers, while the bad guys would be black hat hackers and cyber criminals. Now, why the confusion? The mainstream name for the good guys would be security researchers, while for bad guys, as you guessed it, it would be hackers. Now, the intentions of the good guys is to break security for non-malicious purposes only, either to test their own security systems, perform penetration tests, vulnerability testing, vulnerability assessments, and all of it while getting permitted to do so. Because the best defense is attacking, is offensive. And it can be called even offensive security. I check whether I, from my own company, can access some confidential data when I'm not supposed to. And if I see I can, I will fix it, I will patch it before the bad guys who can sell it or use it will do so first. And that's really the main difference. The bad guys, their intentions will be to gain unauthorized access to a computer in order to commit another crimes, such as destroying information, gaining some confidential data, and etc., etc. And this is pretty much the main difference here. The good guys do it before the bad guys will do it. Okay, now some basic cyber terms. So first of all, before we talk about all this world of cybersecurity, we have to know about some very basic cyber terms. And I want to start with vulnerability. It's a weakness that a cyber attack can exploit to gain unauthorized access or to perform unauthorized actions on a computer systems. And I will just begin with everything. So an exploit is a malicious application or even a script that can take advantage of a computer's vulnerability. So first of all, we have to uh, see a vulnerability, and then we can exploit it. So a real world example could be you want to break out into a house, break in, sorry, into a house, and you see an open window. This is the vulnerability. Now, to exploit this vulnerability, you'll have to, I don't know, take a ladder and get inside the window. This is how you exploit it. Okay. Now, the breach is the instant a hacker has successfully exploited a vulnerability in a computer. Firewall is a defensive technology. Either it can be hardware or software designed to keep the bad guys out. A malware is an umbrella term for all of the kinds of malicious software designed to damage a computer or to access data. And as I've said before, it includes viruses, ransomware, Trojan horses, etc., etc. Now, a virus is a type of malware intended to corrupt, erase, or modify even an information of the computer before spreading to others. However, in more recent years, viruses have even caused physical damage. Ransomware is a form of malware that deliberately prevents you from accessing your computer files, thus pretty much holding you like a hostage. How it does it? It encrypts all of your files in the computer, and unless you pay the hackers, you cannot decrypt your files. And most of the time, most of the time, even if you pay the hackers, they will just not decrypt your data. They will take your money, steal your money, and won't do anything about it. So the best way to deal with ransomware is not to pay the hackers. And a very, very good tip for me, all of the information you have on your phone, on your computer, whatever, back it up. Do constant backups. You can buy a hard drive and plug into your computer and copy all of your information into that hard drive, or the more convenient way, do it all online, on the cloud, Google Drive, OneCloud, iCloud, anything you like. This is the best way to counter a ransomware attack. Now, a Trojan horse is a piece of malware that hides behind a legitimate software. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you here have installed some pirated, illegitimate games or movies into your computer. But what you don't know is that behind the scenes, maybe some malware was running that acquired information about your computer or sent some Bitcoin mining to the hacker's system. It happens all the time. A bot or a botnet is a type of software application or script that performs tasks on commands, and it allows a remote hacker to take full control of your computer. And a collection of this is called a botnet, which is bot network, and is controlled by the hacker. So what happens pretty much? The hacker gains remote control of a lot, millions, thousands of computers around the world, and most of the time he does so to use it to perform a DDoS attack. He uses millions of computers to send millions of packets, information to a server, a system, whatever. And this is how DDoS, the best type of DDoS, is performed. And this is, as I told you before, the denial of service. A lot of computers sending malicious information into a server to make it slow, to get it stuck. It happens a lot. Clickjacking, a hacking attack that tricks victims into unintentionally clicking on a malicious link or button and usually disguised as a harmless element. It can be part of phishing, which is a technique used by hackers to trick people into revealing sensitive information. It can be included in emails when someone sends you an email that you have to very quickly reset your password, or even some lady that says that you look very good and to start chatting with her. Don't fall into this kind of stuff. It happens all the time, and most of the time, if it's too good to be true, never trust it. So that's a lot of terms, but in today's webinar, we will focus on two main terms, which is vulnerability and exploit. So as I've told you before, vulnerability is a device, software, human weakness involving a cyber asset that an attacker can exploit to perform malicious activities. For example, a software vulnerability can be an incorrectly written piece of code that allows malicious parties to perform software operations against the user's wishes.
אורן, אתה יכול לבטל את הצ'אט בבקשה?
Okay. Okay. Let's continue. Now, which types of vulnerabilities are there? So first of all, we're going to talk about system misconfigurations. These system misconfigurations can be a result of network components, for example, switches, routers, which are being used in your homes, in your offices, wherever pretty much, with insecure setting or even default security configurations. And attackers frequently explore and scan the victim's network or systems to find these misconfigurations and holes that they can exploit. So for example, if your home router, its password is admin, I really encourage you to change it right away. Now, out-of-date software. Attackers can scan and explore the victim's network for vulnerabilities in known software or systems which have so the vendor has released a patch to correct a bug. If the software is not maintained and updated regularly with the newest patches, attackers can take advantage of this to carry out attacks. So, for example, how can it be? So if, for example, you have a Google Chrome account, okay, Google Chrome browser, and you see on the right or on the left, I'm not sure exactly, that it's outdated and needs to be updated, it means that if an attacker sees right away that you use Google Chrome, which in an outdated version, he can exploit it because it has some vulnerabilities which you didn't update. So the best tip I can get you out from here is to always update your software, whatever it will be. It can be your video game, it can be Google Chrome, Microsoft Word, whatever pretty much you use. And I'm pretty sure all of the time you enter some application on your computer and it tells you, oh, there's a new update. Do you want to do it right away? And because you don't have this very important minute in your life, you always click on no. So this is very important to always update and patch everything that you have, because what can we do? Attackers can always use it to exploit some out-of-date softwares. Right, now zero-day attacks. Zero-day attacks are the most fearful ones because they target a specific application which the vulnerability is only known to the attacker itself. So it has yet to be discovered by the vendor itself. And since the vulnerability has not yet been reported by the vendor, it has no known patch to correct it. And this vulnerability is highly dangerous since there's no pretty much real way to defend oneself against them until the attack occurs. So this is the scariest type of vulnerability out there. Now let's talk about CVEs. CVE is an acronym for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. CVE is the global program whose goal is to identify, define, and classify publicly disclosed cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And it's maintained by the MITRE Corporation, which receives support from the US Department of Homeland Security. Now, if you want, you can even right now open Google and write Cisco Catalyst 2960, which is a type of a network device, CVEs. And you will just see a long list of common CVEs which this device has. So if, for example, you want to hack a network which has this type of network device, you can know with the version of the network switch which CVEs are still available for you to exploit. Now, let's talk about exploitation. So how does even an exploit work? Many vulnerabilities require an attacker to launch a sequence of suspicious actions to execute an exploit. Vulnerabilities are typically the consequence of software or system flaws. Attackers build code to exploit these flaws to insert various kinds of malicious software into the system. So an exploit is not the malicious program itself, but rather the method cyber criminals employ to deliver it. Now, there are two main categories of exploits: known exploits and zero-day exploits. So as you can already guess, known exploits is when an exploit is reported to the developers of the impacted program, and the vulnerability is frequently patched to make the exploit useless. Some organizations provide an identifying number, a description, and instructions on how to prevent this exploit. So if, for example, Cisco has found a vulnerability and a way to exploit Cisco Catalyst 2960, it will publish how to defend against this type of exploitation. And first things first is to update your system. And unknown exploits, 0 days, are exploits which are unknown to everyone except for the developers who created them, hackers, developers, whatever. And these are the most severe exploits since they occur when a software or a system has a significant security vulnerability that the supplier is unaware of. When such an exploit happens, the systems that use it are exposed to a cyber attack, and the vendor will issue a patch to address it only after the attack has occurred. Now I want to talk with you about a very specific case study, which is called Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue is one of the best known and devastating exploits to emerge. Eternal Blue, initially designed by the NSA of America, of the United States, and it was stolen by the Shadow Brokers hacker group and disclosed in March of 2017. Even though Microsoft found the targeted vulnerability and even published a security update to correct it, many people around the world and even organizations failed to deploy patch in time. So exactly what I've told you before. A lot of systems, the Eternal Blue vulnerability was already known to the public. Microsoft even patched it up. So all people had to do is open up the Windows Update Center, click update, and that's it. They would have been defended against Eternal Blue. But a lot of people around the world didn't do so. And this enabled attackers to carry out some of the most devastating cyber attacks in history. such as WannaCry. So WannaCry is a ransomware that was the world's worst nightmare. The attack spread rapidly over computer networks using the Eternal Blue exploit, and it has infected over 100,000 devices per hour in 150 countries. So WannaCry encrypted computers, making them inaccessible and posing a significant issue for the health systems, governments, and institutions. And even giant corporations were targeted by WannaCry. Although WannaCry is no longer active, similar vulnerabilities are still allowing Eternal Blue to target Windows users running outdated operating systems. Update, update, update all the time. So who is the most vulnerable to exploits? As I said before, those who never update the software. And consider this, the longer a piece of software has been on the market, the more time people have to discover its vulnerabilities and develop exploits for them. Take this into consideration. All right. Now let's talk about web application pen testing. Over the last decade or two, millions of companies have adopted the web as a way of communicating and sharing resources with customers. And we use it all the time. Want to know information about a specific company, about the restaurant, whatever, we do it on the web. And web attacks, as such, have grown in popularity as web has evolved. And this contains severe, critical, or urgent vulnerabilities. And this results from a lack of effort to put into secure programming. Many developers are motivated to write code rapidly rather than to write it securely. And as such, the result of it is over 18 million websites are infected with malware at given time each week. So programmers, a lot of times, software engineers tend to write code as fast as possible. Their bosses are on their necks, always telling them, you have to finish it by the next week or things like that. And because of that, because they're limited with the time they have, they do not put their minds into securing their code. And because of that, a lot of vulnerabilities are existing. Now, is it new? As you've guessed, no, it has been there ever since websites were created. And as time passes, the defense mechanisms become stronger, but so do the attackers. Now let's talk about what kind of web-based attacks are out there. So you've typed a lot of these in the chat earlier, and it includes XSS, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and path traversal. Now, XSS typically involves inducing a website to execute arbitrary or malicious script code an attacker uploaded, usually because the site fails to properly sanitize user submitted inputs. So, for example, in the URL, sometimes you can see when you open your profile, you want to reset your password, you will be directed to a specific URL. And an attacker can use this to make some attacks on you. So if another visitor loads a compromised or malicious web page, their browser may execute the malicious code infecting the victim. Now, how it can happen? For example, a forum, a video on YouTube with a comment section. You can type in there whatever you want. Hi everyone, very nice video, whatever you want. But sometimes some malicious actors can even type some malicious code in there. So of course, in YouTube, most of what you'll type will be sanitized and YouTube will defend against it. but there are a lot of very, very old websites or forums which do not have all of these defense mechanisms, and you can write some malicious code in there, send this to one of your victims, and the victim will load the malicious code. And you can gain information such as his cookies, maybe even his credentials. A lot of stuff can happen. Now, SQL injection is the most common form of SQL injection. Occurs when an attacker enters a malicious SQL code into a field on a web page, and the server-side code submits it to the database without properly sanitizing it first. And a successful SQL injection attack can delete, change, or even just view some sensitive data to the attacker. And third is path traversal, the attempt to access unauthorized files or directories outside the web root folder by injecting patterns such as .. as you can see on the file here. And what happens behind the scenes is, instead of gaining, for example, the web page that your browser has requested from the server, you will gain some sensitive information which you're not supposed to get. So if there are some web developers in here, as you know, the server, when you view a web page in a website, the server behind the scenes takes this web page from the database or any other form of storing the data. And something can happen that instead of getting the web page, an attacker can somehow gain access to go to the root folder, for example, and see maybe what this server is running at, and maybe some malicious, confidential data that the server stores, credentials, maybe some hashed passwords. It can be a lot of stuff. And we have to be very, very careful with it when we develop websites, anything at all. Now, we've talked about three very main types of web-based attacks. And today we're gonna talk mainly about SQL injections. And so before we do, first of all, what is SQL? SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's the language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data from databases. So SQL can retrieve data from database, it can insert records, update, delete, create, a lot of stuff. And here you can see an example of how we can use SQL to retrieve data from database with a SQL query. So on the left, we have a query, and on the right is the result of this query. So as you can see here, a very basic SQL query says select origin city name, okay, so, and destination city name. So we select these two columns from a database called flights, where now we filter it. The flight time hour is more than 5, and the origin city is from the United States. And we will order it by the flight time hour, and we will limit the first 20 results. And as you can see from the right, the origin city is indeed all the time from the United States: Atlanta, Louisville, Peoria, Albuquerque, Birmingham, Seattle, Savannah, Philadelphia, etc. A lot of United States cities. And it goes to the destination city name, which can be anywhere around the world. Durban, Sydney, Xi'an, Seoul, Bangalore, whatever, pretty much. So this is a very basic example of a SQL query. Now, as you can already guess, attackers can use it for malicious purposes. So you can just imagine, as some databases store usernames, passwords, email addresses, maybe even credit card information in them. And if an attacker finds a way to manipulate and exploit a database, he can do so with these very SQL queries. Now let's see how it happens behind the scenes. So how SQL injection works. First, an attacker finds an input in a website and types in a malicious SQL query to retrieve sensitive information from the database. The query is then sent to the web server and then to the SQL server. The server sends the data to the attacker and asks for the back and asks for being sent back to the web server and then to the attacker. And it could be anything from which tables are available up to getting all the passwords or even deleting some user records. Once you find a SQL injection vulnerability, you can do anything you want. Now let's see a graphical example. Let's say we have a company called Virus Enterprise. In their website, they've got a normal login page. Now, me, as an attacker, I would like to access the administrator user and get maximum privileges. So I could do so by connecting with a user called administrator. And what I would do is upload viruses instead of antiviruses into the website. So first, what I'm going to do is write the admin username and then the password. Now, as you can see here, it's a very, very strange password. A single quote mark, which ends a normal string input in SQL, and then I will write my malicious SQL query afterwards, or1 = 1 --. Now, what do you guys think will happen? What does this SQL query means? So I will open the chat real quick, and please type your answers. What do you think will happen after I write this and click login? Always true, you'll get the password, display everything, result is true, admin, true value, admin access. Very good, very good. All right, so you did guess the answer. What will happen here? I will really get will be logged in as the administrator. And how it happens, because the query, the SQL query I wrote here, first of all, the dash that I wrote here says that I will end the original SQL query and I will begin a new one. And the new one is or1 = 1. Now, or1 = 1 means, let's see behind the scenes. When I press login, boom. This is what happens behind the scenes. The SQL query looks like this. Select all, an asterisk means all, from users where the username equals to administrator and the password equals to 1 = 1. And last time I checked, 1 does equal 1 all the time, which makes it true. So what does it mean? No matter what kind of username I would have written and then put this malicious SQL query afterwards, it will always assume the password is true and it would let me in. Now, of course, this kind of SQL injection is the most classic one and the most known one, which, what does it mean? That a lot of websites are immune to it. So even if you'll try doing so in Google, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it just won't work because it's a very known trick and everyone, at least all the big companies, are immune to it. But there are still many, many forms of SQL injection and still one of the most common cyber attacks out there. Right. So now the part that all of you been waiting for. Let's see a demonstration of a real SQL injection attack that can happen in real life. So I will stop my screen share for just a second, and I will very shortly begin a new screen sharing. Just a second. All right. Okay. So as you can see here, and first of all, I gotta say that all of the stuff that I'm showing you right now is happening on a virtual machine, on a dedicated website, which allows me to trying to exploit it for only educational purposes. So do not try this on any website that you might find out online or anything at all. Only very dedicated websites which allow you to hack them. Okay, so as I've told you before, SQL injection is a type of attack which allows me to gain access to some information inside the database. Now, as you can see here, maybe, for example, I want to see some records of someone called A or has A in their username. And I can see here that there's Mike Esper, the Secretary of State, David Berdant, the Secretary of Interior. And I can assume as a hacker that all of the records I see here, behind the scenes, there's a database that stores all of these records. So, for example, I search for Mike, there's Mike Pence, which is the vice president, ex-vice president of the United States. All right, so I can very much assume that this website, what it does is storing some information about the elections. As you can see here, election and voting, campaign finance, businesses, records, etc., etc. All right. So me, as a very expert hacker, I know there's a tool, an automated tool called SQL Map, SQL Map. It's a tool written in Python, which what it does automatically finds SQL injection on a website. Now, maybe I don't know how to use this tool, and a lot of the tools are, you will never get to know how to use them out of the box. And because of that, there are a lot of cheat sheets available on the web. So here's the one cheat sheet that I found on the internet, how to use this tool to gain some sensitive information. Now, first of all, I want to list all the databases that are available on the website. So, and before I even begin, I gotta say, this tool doesn't work all the time, of course, because a lot of websites are immune to this type of SQL injection. And of course, some very badly configured websites will have some SQL injection vulnerability in them. For example, this website. So what I'm gonna do is just copy what I see here, SQL map -u. -u says which URL do I wanna, which website do I wanna exploit? And of course, this is not the website. The website, in my case, its URL is this one, okay? And I'm gonna copy it and type SQL map -u, the website I wanna try and exploit. And then to list all the databases on the website, I will type --DBS, which means all the databases. Now let's do it. It will take a little time, but eventually it will give us a result if we did everything right. And of course, if the website is indeed vulnerable. All right, so as you can see here, it's fetching the database's names. All right, and here we have the result. We have 8 available databases. A database called Elections, MySQL, which is the database name, test, website, information schema, and well, maybe because I'm an attacker and I want to see some information about some people maybe in the elections who voted what is information, I would want to enter the elections database. Now let's see how can I see all the tables, all the information inside a specific database. So as I can see here, right after the listing of the databases, I can list all the tables in a specific database. So to do so, I will write SQL map minus u, the same as always, and then minus d and the specific database that I want to see its table in. And after that, dash dash tables. So let's do it. Okay, so minus capital D, and the database table is called, elections. And I want to see all the tables in there. So let's do it. So again, because this is an automated tool which wants to show me the results in a very good way, in a very nice way, it will take a little time. As we can see, it has indeed worked. All right, so we have 9 tables in the elections. We have all stars, candidates, the menu, I guess, that they have served there, the team, the voters, whatever. So for example, if I want to see who's inside the all stars, let's see what I can do to watch a specific table. So list all columns in a table. It means to see all the details inside a specific table, I will have to write this. So the database name, the table name, and the columns. All right, so let's do so. So minus the elections, minus the table name. Let's see all stars. Let's see who are all the all stars in these elections, and then columns. All right, fetching columns. Okay, so in this case, there is no one in the All Stars. Okay, that's too bad. I guess no All Stars were in that day. So let's, for example, see a list of all the voters inside. So the same as before. Let's type now, instead of all stars, the voters table. All right, here we go. So as you can see, we have columns called address, the candidate ID, the name, and even his social security number. So this is pretty interesting. A social security number is like the ID number, only in the United States. So a lot of sensitive information, which we can even see and watch. So to watch a specific information, we'll have to dump the selected column. So let's even dump all of it. So I want to dump all of the tables, all of the voters table. So what I'm going to do is /dump, and it will dump me all the information which is available in the voters table. All right, it's fetching the entries. Entries are the data itself. So as we can see, it will give me the column name and the entry behind it, below it. So both of these things. All right, and as we can see here, we have the candidate ID, we have its name, Seraphine, for example. Your address is 359 301 Maple Street in Sydney, in Ohio, and I even have the zip code. And her social security number is this one. So if I want to be Seraphine in a very fine phone call for the bank, and they ask me for my social security number, I can just give it to them. So a very sensitive information, which we have acquired from a database that no one should have had access besides the system administrators, the website administrators, or any administrator. They should have access to the database. And what we did here with a very, very powerful tool called SQL Map. It's mapping the whole SQL on a website. And as we saw, it's very powerful to gain some automated queries and gain information about the databases. And this is pretty much how we can perform SQL injection. All right. So this was a very nice demonstration about SQL injection. And Yakir now will tell them how to open the self-study, right?
Yes, so basically, guys, you will receive the branch code from Rise with your credentials. So please make sure you receive the mail and you register with the branch code. And that's it. If you have any problem, please contact Rise, and you should be actually can actually access it after the webinar. Thank you.
All right, guys. So I will share my screen to show you what exactly is expected of you to finish up until Thursday. So I'm going to share my screen. As you can see here, this is pretty much what you will see. Okay, Rise WPU Hackathon, and you will have a lot of material for your self-study. So up until Thursday, you will have to finish all of the sections in here. Okay. So it includes cryptography, types of cryptography, hash functions, digital investigation, and anti-forensics. A lot of very useful stuff in the cybersecurity world, and also for the final challenge of the hackathon. So it's very, very important that you finish everything up until Thursday. All right, so now let's see some of the questions that you had during the webinar in the Q&A section. Okay, so I don't know about GSOC, so I can't answer this question. Very sorry. Okay, what's the difference between payload and an exploit? Very good question. A payload, so first of all, let's start with exploit. Exploit is how can we pretty much use the vulnerability to get inside. When I'm inside, I can do whatever I want. But once I still haven't done anything, I haven't used a payload. A payload can be I write code, I gain information, I encrypt all of the files. This is the payload. So this is the main difference. An exploit is how to get inside, and a payload is once we're inside, what do we do with it? Yeah, so clickjacking is, for example, the very best example is you get a phishing email and they told you, oh, you got $1 million reward. Please enter this link to get your prize. And then you click it, and this is clickjacking. We can constantly see the Google Chrome vulnerabilities nowadays. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that a lot of you did see that in the past couple of weeks, Google Chrome had a lot of updates because a lot of 0 days were found on Google Chrome. So it's very, very important that you update it constantly wherever Google asks you for. If systems is not updated, then it's 0 day for that systems. No, if someone used a known exploit on your system because it's not updated, it's not a 0 day. A 0 day is when your system is updated, everything is fine, and someone used an exploit or a vulnerability that has never been addressed before. CV versus CWE. So a CV is a vulnerability, a known vulnerability that some system has, and CWE is some common weaknesses that a system may have. So, for example, a misconfiguration of leaving the default setting is considered CWE. Recent 0 day is Instagram login bypass. Very nice. Who is in web development? I don't know. The SQL map only work with those websites which are coded in PHP. No, not precisely. It can work in any website that has a vulnerability of SQL injection. So it can be any language at all. What is branch code? It's the code which you will use to register for the self-study in our platform. You will get an email from Rives with all of the details. Okay, I'm just confused about ThriveDX. Can you please tell what role does ThriveDX plays in that bootcamp? As far as I know, LMS is created by Sybint Hacker. Okay, so the bootcamp, the LMS was created by Sybint. We're still the same company. We only changed our name. So instead of Sybint, we're now called ThriveDX. Okay, so everything about the branch code and about anything at all, you will get on your email. You're asking why I have Internet Explorer. No, this is Google Chrome. I don't know why you thought it's Internet Explorer. Site isn't working. So again, everything that's related to the platform, you will get all of the details on an email. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Kuropathy, you will not have to complete it right away today. You will have up until Thursday to complete it. Okay, so at the end of the 5-day challenge, you will not be referred for a job role because, as I said before at the beginning of the webinar, this is only the basics of cybersecurity. You will have to learn so much more to gain a role or a job in this industry. You will have to work very, very hard. So first, we will give you the basics, which after that, you will have all the tools and knowledge to research by yourselves. Okay, how to approach bug bounty? Nice question. So first of all, you'll have to learn how to exploit specific vulnerabilities, how to perform some 0 days, etc., etc., etc. And after you've gained all of this knowledge, you have a lot of bug bounty programs online, which a lot of companies ask for you to test their systems, their networks. And once you find some bugs in there, you can just report them and get some money for it. Yeah, so I think the best roadmap for bug bounty, web hacking, it would be from YouTube, first of all, gain the basics of how to hack into some applications, websites, and from there, you will have all the knowledge to do everything in your own ways. Okay, so can you penetrate any website through SQL injection? So again, nothing is 100% guaranteed, but if you find a very interesting way to exploit SQL injection, so of course it's indeed possible. Yeah, it's possible to hack cell phones via payloads, so as well as computers. Cell phones are hackable as much as computers. Okay, of course. Thank you, Manish, for the kind words. All right. Govins asks, if a website encrypts the password, would it still be possible to perform SQL injection? So it doesn't matter website encrypts, doesn't encrypt the password. If SQL injection is available in there, it will be performed. Now, the question is, what happens behind the scenes? So for example, if a website stores your password, and it encrypts it, so the password will be hashed and you will have nothing to do with the hashed password. But if it didn't encrypt, the password will be plain text and you can use it to hack into this user's account. Okay, Parduna asks, how will we know where to attack like service discovery? So there are a lot of tools such as Nmap, okay? I will write in the chat how it's called, which what it does, it discovers and searches for services inside a system. And it can even perform a service version. So for example, if I see that a service is from a version, for example, 5.6, and I know this version is outdated, and I ask for CVs for this service 5.6 version, I can perform an exploit for this vulnerability. The vulnerability here is that it's outdated. How will I know if a website uses SQL as its DB or any other DBMS for data storage? So you will have to use various of techniques, and of course, I'm pretty sure most of them will not work because a lot of the websites nowadays are pretty much guaranteed to be against this kind of attacks. But if you find a very good way to exploit it, and you've gained access to perform SQL injection, for example, via SQL map, there are a lot of ways to know the DBMS that it uses for data storage. Okay. So I will answer 2 more questions, and it will be it for today. Okay, so how to start ethical hacking? So as I said before, the best tool to use is YouTube. A lot of free tutorials, as well in Hindi. So you have a lot of material to start from. And if you want to get something more specific, you have websites such as, I will write in the chat, websites such as TryHackMe, Udemy, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which has free courses for in any material you just want. Okay, and one last question. Okay.
Ron, I can also add that you all received an email with the branch code from Rise, but it says password instead of branch code, okay? So please go to register, and instead of a password, basically insert the branch code when it says password, okay? And then basically you need to choose your own password, and then you will register to the Docebo part.
Great, thank you, Akir. Okay, so one last question. What skills are needed to get into the cybersecurity roles? Okay, so this is a very good question, and I will not tell you to be very good in hacking or learning the best networking material. First of all, be curious. Show passion to this world. So the best skills you can show to your recruiters that you really live in the cybersecurity world, that it's very interesting to you. You have researched a lot, and the best skills would be self-studying, curiosity, and always staying updated about the most common and the latest cybersecurity news. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to perform this webinar. Hope it was a good one, and see you again on Thursday. Thank you very much, and bye-bye, everyone. יקיר, אני עוצר, נכון?
Recording stopped.
כן, כן.
Yeah.